right. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Atheists Having Cocktails with Christians. I'm with hopefully a new friend, Greg Minier, Crucified,
Sure.
Applehead, self-titled. It's been awesome because, now, I got to do Jim a couple weeks ago, and now I get to do you. And, hopefully at some point I'll get to hit, Jeff and Jim, kind of like Pokemon cards, collect all four of you, So,
Yeah.
I'm always here with my co-pilot, my Sailor Jerry. So,
Oh, Sailor Jerry, huh? Okay, well, I'm on Tito's and soda water. I didn't.
nice. Good vodka.
I was hoping to get down to the liquor store and get a good bottle of Burbs and enjoy some old fashions tonight with you, but didn't happen. So this is the go-to in the house.
Well, cheers, man. Thank you for being on the show. Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get to like more old stuff, man, tell me what projects you're doing, what you're up to in your life now, musical stuff, life in general. Tell me where your place in this world is now, being, 25 years out of really kind of like the Crucified and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, more than that, more like 30 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We moved to Tennessee 3 years ago, and just wanted to get out of California.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no intentions of anything to do with music coming out here. And I've been a special education teacher for 17 years.
Right.
Not going back next year. We can talk about that later. But yeah, so got out here and moved into this neighborhood, and I just started meeting musicians around me, no one to play with, but musicians that either had been or are currently, doing big stuff. And it just kind of, I'd never done any, recording on DAWs, as they call them, on computers and stuff. Last studio stuff I had was home studio was a 1/2-inch tape synced to an ADAT. So that's the beginning of the 90s, So that's the last time I really recorded my own music, other than a couple times in a buddy's studio here and there. But got a little Mac laptop and just started working on GarageBand, and then just kind of started getting the fever.
Yeah.
And then when Rox Records re-released the Applehead record they did first, which just happened to have sitting right here.
Nice.
First on vinyl, which was sweet.
Yeah.
They did that, and then they put out this Minier thing on vinyl.
That's how you pronounce your last name, is Minier?
Yeah, Minier.
Okay.
But I just started kind of getting the fever again and started enjoying recording stuff. And then just thought, you know what? Maybe I'll just do a follow-up, or I'll do a record. I need a name for it. Well, what do I call it? I'll just stick with the Applehead, second Applehead record, which it's nothing like the first one. It's just more straight ahead, kind of retro-ish metal. That's the way I feel it sounds.
Yeah, you were nice enough to send me those, some of the songs you've been working on. And yeah, they definitely remind me of that like 90s kind of like Precious Death, kind of grunge, but metal, good vocals, you know what I mean? It's definitely not like thrasher punk or hardcore, death metal or anything. But yeah, man, I mean, I got to listen to two of the songs while I was working today, and I was like, it always, amazes me what, especially as a bass player yourself in bands for years, just, what people create in their mind and what they hear and what they're able to put out and make people enjoy. So yeah, I mean, definitely. And I love that, Rox Records has been putting everything back out on vinyl, because even though I have my own belief system, I'm still a big fan of the bands I grew up listening to as a Christian kid, and I love vinyl. And so it's great to have that background. I've been able to collect and, add to my collection, so. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's cool. It's cool that they are doing that, because, we all love some nostalgia, and listening to the old music, no matter what it's about or whatever. If it's something you really dug when you were a kid, then you're always going to dig it. So, and that's funny, because I don't listen to music a lot. unless I'm driving or, barbecuing and having some cocktails and
Yeah.
put on some music. But it's always the music I grew up on. So usually I'll revert back to 70s rock, 80s metal,
Yeah.
and then every once in a while I want to listen to the, the Christian bands that I really liked as a teenager.
Which, give me some of those. What were like, because I mean, you guys were definitely the forerunner of all really legitimate style of music when it came to Christian music, because there was a lot of weak stuff back in the day. You know what I mean? So, what were the bands, maybe Christian and not Christian, that you really dug when you were growing up and wanting to create music?
Yeah, first of all, I'll agree with you on that. That the majority of Christian music always sucked. It was kind of like a tear down,
Yeah.
But Christian kids were willing to take what they could get, But early on, the first Christian album I ever had was Colors by the Resurrection Band, which I still love to this day. I think the musicianship and the songwriting is so stinking good, and the lead guitar playing and the sounds and everything. Every once in a while I'll put it on and listen to the record. I'm like, gosh, man, those guys were really good.
Yeah.
But after that, of course, in high school, I was huge into Striper.
Yeah.
But here's the way it was. First album came out, loved it. Soldiers Under Command came out, really, really liked it.
Yeah.
Until the Devil came out, liked it. In God We Trust, and it just went down and down and down from there. And the same thing, seeing them live. The first time I saw them live, and granted I was younger.
Yeah.
Blew me away. The second year they came to town, it just got more and more cheesy each time.
Yeah.
Back then, and I mean that was the thing. But I was really into them. I still really dig the first two Altar Boys records. I love the music and Mike Stan's guitar playing and his singing. I just love the songs. I've never in my life have I been a lyric guy.
Mm-hmm.
The same songs I've been listening to for 45 years. I still don't know the lyrics to. Even I don't know if you could see back there, but the first band I got into as a kid was Kiss.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason I started playing guitar. I wanted to be Ace Frehley.
Oh, hell yeah.
I've listened to those songs thousands upon thousands of times. I know every little guitar note that's coming, but I still don't know all the lyrics.
I hear you.
I've always been a music guy.
Yeah, my wife can recite lyrics without even hearing the music, and I'll listen to a song that I've loved for years and be like, "Oh, is that what he's saying?" Sometimes
right, yeah. That's what my wife does too. She can hear a song like 3 times and have the lyrics memorized. Sometimes I'll be singing along to a song that I've listened to for decades and decades. She's heard it for decades, but hasn't loved it the way I loved it. So what are you singing? That's not you're not even close. I'm like, dang it.
Now, has this ever happened to you at a point in time playing a show live where at one point you're just like, I don't remember my own song. You know what I mean? Has that ever happened to you where like you're playing one of your songs like, where am I at? You know what I mean? I mean, maybe it's happened to me because I just drank too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been like, what song are we playing right now?
Well, that's never happened to me with original music because I haven't done a lot of shows where I've been singing original music.
Yeah.
But I played in cover bands for over 25 years, and much of that, probably half of that as a full-time job, as that was my income.
Oh, nice.
It's amazing what lyrics are still stuck in my head. Even songs that I haven't heard in 15 years, I can still, if it comes on, I know every lyric. But then there might be songs that I tried so hard to memorize, but just couldn't get them, So playing those gigs, sure, a lot of times forgot the lyrics, especially when you're, like you're saying, when you're playing an instrument too, you got to put one of them on autopilot.
Yeah.
So it either has to be the guitar or the bass, because you play bass, right?
Yeah, I'm a bass player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the bass on your part, you put that on autopilot, focus on, you know, singing, or the other way around. But if you kind of, sometimes if you switch over, you know, for whatever reason, it might throw you off, or
Yeah.
it's a funny thing. And then
I'm
of
just gonna
course,
blame mine on drinking, you know.
well, I'll go there too. That the more you drink, the easier it is to forget lyrics.
Yeah. I mean, this is an absolute true story. I was playing in my Irish punk rock band called Brass Knuckle Choir, and the guy that was putting on the show was a good friend of ours. He ran a club here in Kansas City called El Torion, which was like our CBGBs. All the punk shows, hardcore shows played there. So he let us open up for Blood for Blood. Have you ever heard of them?
I'm not.
Yeah, the Boston hardcore band. Just they're great, but it was uh, a bill we shouldn't have been on. You know what I mean? Because our musical styles didn't even mesh with them. You know, we had a bagpipe player and Irish music. You know,
That's
and
sweet.
these guys are just super hardcore Boston, just want to beat the crap out of you. And so we were the opening band on like six other bands played, and it was an early show. I got super drunk, and I'm sitting at the bar, and their guitar player, White Trash Rob, comes over and is sitting next to me. I'm like, "Oh, White Trash Rob, man, like, when are you gonna play?" And he looks at me in that Boston accent. He goes, "What are you, fucking retarded? We just got done." And I totally missed it.
You had no idea.
Yeah, but my friends were like, "Dude, you were there up front watching." I'm like, "I don't remember any of this," you know. So
yeah, you were wasted. Sure.
Yeah, I've had those moments where, you know, you just kind of turn around. I'm like, I need 15 seconds to figure out where I'm at, you know, and kind of like get back into it. So
I got a funny story to piggyback on that. It's the opposite though, because I've always had a bit of a stage fright, not when it comes to playing guitar, but when it comes to singing. Because when I'm singing, if for whatever reason, I'm always thinking, what are people thinking about me? Are they liking what I'm singing? Do I sound good? Do I sound like crap? I don't know. Do they hate me? Do they love me?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's one reason I always loosened up, you know, through the decades of playing covers. But there was one time, one of my bass players and I, we had to do this morning show live on the radio. And what they do is they would have bands come in. It's like at 7 o'clock in the morning, you know, and this time of my life, we can get to it and talk to it. So any people that are watching, don't freak out, you know, but you know, we'd be up till 3 and 4 every, you know, morning. So get up, you know, after a couple hours sleep and got to go do this gig live on the radio. And of course, you know, I had a couple shots of something in the truck before going in. Just hoping that would like get me back into the swing of things. But we're live on the radio, and we were playing we were doing that song Inside Out by Inside Out. What were they called? It was a 90s band. I was swallowing my pride.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so anyway, go to sing it, and it starts with the chorus. I do the chorus. As soon as I start playing the verse, and then we're doing acoustic, totally blank on the lyrics.
Oh no.
My bass player just starts laughing. So we stop. We all laugh about it. Start it again. I did the exact same thing when I got to the verse. Forgot the lyrics again, just totally lost my mind.
Maroon 5.
So that was an instance where, no, it wasn't Maroon 5. Eve 6.
Okay.
Eve 6. That's who it was.
That's right. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. You know. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing for me. Like, I mean, with, you know, growing up in a very Christian household, you know, I mean, we didn't listen to a lot of secular music other than like oldies like Chuck Berry and Elvis, and you know that you know always gave me my love of like Motown, because we listened to, you know, a lot of that style of music, you know. But for me, it was you guys. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You guys were not only, I think, you guys are still my favorite thrash hardcore punk band in the Christian realm, you know. And second, you guys just, because I was lucky enough, I got to see you guys 4 times. I saw you the first time at the Reseda Country Club playing with Deliverance and Scattered Few. And then I saw you guys at the Roxy one time with Mortal, Nicene Creed, Betrayal, and Wish for Eden. And then I saw you another time at the Country Club again. And I think it was with Precious Death. I think so. I'm not 100% sure. And Everyday Life. And then I saw you one more time at the Whiskey, but I don't remember who opened that show at all. I was late that time, so I think I just got there for you. But shit, I had a point. I lost my point. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, like the way that Undercover and all those bands influenced you, your guys' music was what influenced me, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Like I told
remember,
Jim,
did we play the Whiskey?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't remember playing the Whiskey.
Maybe not. Maybe it was somewhere else.
Or was it Gazzari?
No, I was Gazzari's closed down before I was old enough. Before they were already gone by the time I was going to shows at like 14 in Hollywood. So I never got to go to Gazzari.
Okay. Maybe we did. Maybe I just don't remember. Yeah. Most of the shows that I remember the best are the ones that I had video footage of, you know, so there are probably a lot that I've forgotten about.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, there are times I'll be talking to a friend and like, you know, we're talking about a show. I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have saw that band. They're like, you played that show. Or I mean, because we've played so many shows as well. I'm like, did I play that show? I just, you know, it's all just a big fog of this and that. And like, oh yeah, okay. Well, I'll take you have the flyer. I guess we did play that show, you know? So, but tell me a little bit about back in the day, man. Young Greg playing guitar, you know, give me like, you know, when the Crucified started and like what you guys wanted, like, you know, how it became, you know, being Christ focused and just, you know, still wanting to be, you know, legitimate in punk rock and having a legitimate sound that nobody had before.
Yeah. I'll try not to like repeat too much of what Jim said. But you know, as he said, he was like Daddy Jim. He's, you know, 3 years older. And he and I, you know, I've known him since I was in third grade, because he was my next older brother's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, through probably late elementary school and junior high. So we all went to the same youth group. And the way it came together is it was me, Jim, and a guy named Kirk, who was our first bass player. He actually played the keyboard thing first before he got a bass and tried to learn how to play bass.
Yeah.
We would at youth group, we would back up our assistant youth leader and play a few songs at the beginning of youth group or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, whenever we'd have rehearsals, you know, we would all be there hanging out before he would show up. So I would usually get on his guitar and then we would start goofing around and playing, and we'd play these punk rock riffs and stuff. And after a while, we were like, well, we got to form a band and dump youth leader Barry, you know? And that's exactly what we did.
So
and
was Mark your first and only singer, or did you ever have a singer before Mark?
No, we had a guy named Wayne Stonecipher. He was our first singer.
Okay.
And so he came in and sang with us. And that's when Jim told you we were called KGB, which actually you said, well, that sounds cool and everything, but he didn't tell you what it stood for. It stood for Kids in God's Blessings, which is...
I get it. I get it.
Lame. But we were like, KGB sounds really cool. What could it stand for? You know, otherwise Christians are going to say KGB. What kind of is that? So anyway, Wayne sang with us, and then I think at that time, Jim and Wayne, I think they were both seniors, and Wayne wanted to quit for whatever reason. he did. I don't think he really wanted to commit to being in a band or
Yeah.
something. I'm not exactly sure, but he was the one who suggested Mark to us. And it's I'd seen Mark around school and stuff, and didn't know him or anything. But then he came out and like tried out one time at practice, and it went from there. We all thought it sounded cool. And
Yeah, I mean, he's a great vocalist and a great lyricist, and I mean, you guys. I mean, I'll say this straight up, man. I put Pillars of Humanity up there. I'd put it up against any secular record. Any. From DRI to Suicidal. You know what I mean? Like I was telling Jim, that was one of the only cassettes back then. When me and my homeboys would go skate, that I would, when it was my turn to throw in a tape, I was able to throw, because they were like, "Who is this?" And I'd still be able, like, "Well, they're Christian," and they didn't care because they were like, "Man, this is good." You know what I mean? Where there were so many other bands that you could tell were just doing the cheesiness and the holier than thou, and the holy roller stuff, where you guys actually talked and sounded legit. You know what I mean? It just wasn't, Jesus loves you, Jesus loves you. It was like you guys actually had real depth to your songwriting, to your lyrics, and I still say, man, you guys had the coolest merch, coolest name, coolest merch.
Well, Mark did all our artwork through the whole time the band. So all those T-shirts, all those designs are drawn or designed by Mark. He's a great artist, and you're right. His lyrics are different from most of Christian music because, like you said, they aren't just Jesus loves you, preachy lyrics or whatever. He's an interesting guy. I don't know if melancholy is the right word. I don't know, but he's emotional, and he thinks a lot, way more than me. I'm like, this is me.
Yeah.
Every once in a while get up here, every once in a while down here, but I don't have much to say. I just kind of skate through life like this, where Mark's more of an up and down, but he thinks about stuff, and he writes what he thinks about and what he feels, and from a lot of life experience. And I never really appreciated, like I say, not being a lyrics guy. Well, there's an example there. Being in the band, I didn't know half of our lyrics. I mean, I read them. We would all read them when he wrote them. Cool, that's great.
Yeah.
But then didn't know half of them the whole time after playing them 1,000 times. But it wasn't really until much later, way after the band, that I really read his lyrics. I'm like, dang, these are good.
Yeah,
and a lot of them stand up because he had a lot of stuff that got into social and some political stuff and things like that, and it stands up today too.
Yeah, exactly. That was the whole point of that, is that it just wasn't that typical, youth group, we're gonna try and sound like somebody, but make it, so over the top Christian that it's accepted by Christians. I think you guys had balls. You guys had balls to actually, maybe say something that, especially with the guy in the suit and the Pope, you know what I mean? Where those lyrics, man, are just intense. Like, just because you're in that suit, man, you've never been where I've been. You can't tell me that you walked my shoes, but you got your hand out for money. I'm never going to give it. You know what I mean? Like, that song is fantastic, But then I think also by the time you guys got to Pillars, man, like, dude, I can put that record on from start to finish, and there is nothing I would be like, I'm going to skip this track. This track's not that great. I mean, that, like I said, man, I would put that up against Suicidal's, Lights, Camera, Revolution. I'd put that up against, Anthrax's Caught in a Mosh. I would put that up musically alone and lyrically alone against a lot of secular bands,
Thanks, man. Yeah, things were clicking at that time just right. And where the first record is like full of ripoffs, because we were still, I guess, in that stage or whatever. For whatever reason, by the time we got to writing Pillars, there's not a single riff on there that I can think of that was influenced by anything. Whereas on the first record, I can, like the song "Back to the Cross." Well, dun, 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 dun,
Mhm.
dun, dun. There I'm playing a Slayer song. There are a couple
Mhm.
Slayer ripoffs on there, and some Metallica stuff because I like the song so much. I
Yeah.
wish I could be playing that song, but I can't. So I'll write something that rips it off. But yeah, Pillars wasn't that way, and um, yeah, it
Well, I read Mark's book, and it seemed like you were more the metal guy, where like Mark and maybe Jim are more into the classic hardcore punk rock and whatnot. In his book, he kind of made it sound like you were the one that like listened to more like the long hair. You know what I mean? The headbang and the thrashy stuff, and that was kind of your ingredient to the recipe is bringing that kind of crossover thrash DRI kind of style to it.
yeah, I certainly was by then. I actually, but I'll tell you what, and I've never thought about this, but I probably actually was into a certain amount and liked punk rock before any of those guys did, because I actually got into it when I was in, oh, when was that? My brother got some punk rock records because I remember being in junior high and writing the Dead Kennedys logo on the front
Mhm.
of my textbook.
Yeah,
He had Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. He had uh, which Minor Threat record was it? What's the first one called?
I think it's just Minor Threat, self-titled. The
Oh,
one that's sitting
maybe.
there with
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's just
So
self-titled.
Minor Threat and then GBH, which I love too.
Yeah,
And those were the three bands that, and my best friend at the time, we were Kiss fanatics, and he's like, "Why do you like this crap? This sucks." I'm like, "No, this stuff is badass. This is,
yeah,
you know." But I didn't like fully dive into punk rock. Um, that was really mostly Mark was into it the most. Jim liked it for sure,
yeah,
um, and liked a lot of it. But Jim always loved the metal stuff too. So he and I were both, into Metallica and
yeah,
Slayer and Anthrax. You know,
yeah,
when we found those bands, we were just blown away. You
yeah.
know, blown away.
Well, so especially since you guys were so far up north, up in Fresno, when you guys would come down to LA, just style wise, like when you were playing with like the up and coming Christian metal bands and whatnot, who are some of your favorites to watch and to hang out with? And what bands did you dig, that weren't just undercover or whatnot, when the new rise of metal and because I mean that's the thing with you guys, there was no real punk or thrashy, like it was either speed metal, death metal, or progressive death metal, or that kind of stuff. You guys definitely were in a very big bubble by yourselves, because the only thing close I would say would be Scattered Few, which is not fair because it's not really the same, but I think they had some sort of artistic integrity like you guys had.
Yeah, yeah. Scatter Few definitely, they had their own thing going on, and killer band. We
Yeah.
we played with, so the three bands we played with the most was Scattered Few, Deliverance, and Vengeance,
Hmm.
and those were typically in Southern California. The
Yeah.
shows that we were playing usually was with one of those bands, until you know until most of our shows were headlining shows.
Yeah.
Uh, so those were our buddies,
Yeah.
and probably more, I would say, the Vengeance guys and Scattered Few guys. We hung with them a lot more. With
Yeah.
Deliverance, really, it was just Jimmy that
Yeah.
we spent time with, you know. But as far as like the bands that I dug out of that scene for Christians bands, it would be those three, and add in Believer, which
Yes.
was killer band, but they were
Yes.
wherever in whatever state they were, and then after that,
Illinois, I think.
um, where were they?
Illinois, I think.
Illinois?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think they were
I
from
don't remember.
Chicago.
I don't remember. But they were a killer band, and they came out, that was right about the same time. We all came out with records probably within that same first year. And then after that came like Living Sacrifice and bands.
I dig their first 3 records. I actually just watched a little documentary on them. Once they stopped being long haired, and I'm not saying, you can't change your style, whatever, but when they started doing that whole like corny new metal, screamy stuff, that's when they lost me. Because I think the first 3 records are brilliant, but I was never into that style of hardcore. And by that time when that hardcore was coming, I was already in my 20s, mid to late 20s, and it didn't resonate with me. I mean, I remember doing security for Korn before they were huge, and interesting. They put on a cool show, and I was like, oh, this is neat, but it was never my jam. I was never into it. I was definitely more into the extreme stuff. Like when I stopped listening to like the Christian music pretty much altogether, other than bands I enjoyed, man, I was listening to like Napalm Death and Obituary and Carcass and Bolt Thrower, and the new wave of the European extreme death metal stuff and grindcore stuff is what I got into. That's like when Mortification hit, man, they were just a breath of fresh air in the Christian market for me, because nobody, including Vengeance, and I like Vengeance, they did what they did, but nobody sounded legit except for you guys. And then I would say Mortification and Living Sacrifice. Believer, I think they would have went further if they had a different name, because I think the name sucked.
Yeah. They got picked up by Roadrunner, and I think they were pretty big over in Europe.
Which one?
Believer.
I know Mortification was. They got picked up by Nuclear Blast America, Roadrunner, and a bunch of other secular labels. So I don't know about Believer, but I know that Mortification did.
Yeah, I think they ended up doing pretty well for a time. I don't know. I didn't really follow them. After the Crucified was over, I didn't follow any of the bands anymore. I had no clue what was going on in that scene.
Yeah.
Because if I wasn't playing in it, then I really wasn't listening to any of it any further. Yeah. And by that time, by the end of the band, I'd kind of gotten over the love for thrash. I mean, I still dug it and everything, but I ended up going back to kind of my classic rock roots. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I never got into like the real heavy stuff like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about Vengeance though, because they were a really interesting band, and I really, really dug the songs, especially on the first album. And the reason I liked them was because it wasn't like anything else there. And the reason why is they were actually, they didn't form like a regular band would form.
Yeah.
They were as I understand it, a kind of vision by Pastor Bob. And I think he put Doug and Roger Martin on it and said, look, there's a group of people that we're not reaching. Mm-hmm. We've got all the barren crosses and the blood goods and this and that, but there's a group of people that we're missing out on. And it's this kind of music.
Yeah.
So they pieced that band together for that reason, was to go into that world of music. But here you have these guys that didn't listen to that kind of music.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So the first record, and I remember on, it was your interview with Martinez, where you said you said the second record sucked. You said it was like there was a lot of bluesy influence, and you said I didn't like that. Here's why: is the first record, most of those guitar riffs they didn't write.
Okay,
those songs were already written. Okay, and so when they did the second record, now the guys in the band are writing all those riffs. Mm-hmm. So it was almost like it was a different band's music, Yeah,
very much so. I mean, I think Human Sacrifice it's its own entity, man. It holds its own in time, and it's for 1987 is a brutal record. I mean, especially in the Christian realm. I mean, there was nothing like that, nothing at all.
Yeah.
Like I said, the second record I just wasn't into, bluesy. And that's the thing. I only got to see Vengeance once, and that was on their last album's tour. So that was the only time I'd ever seen Vengeance play, other than seeing Roger when I'd go down to Sanctuary every now and then and listen to him preach.
So did you see them with the original lineup?
No, I saw them
you missed out
on the fourth record. That's it.
You missed out, because I'll tell you what, those guys, the original guys, we had Doug and Larry and Roger up there, and then Martinez
and Glenn.
But Glenn stuck behind the drums. And see, here's another thing: is Glenn, he's a John Bonham drummer, not a thrash drummer, and you can tell by his playing. And he probably, I'm guessing, he probably hated that music. You know what I mean? And he's probably thinking, God, why do I have to play this crap? You know what I mean? Not his style at all.
Yeah.
But they would go out and play, and they were so freaking heavy with that original lineup. And those dudes would headbang so hard.
Yeah.
You would just think heads were going to fall off their necks everywhere. I mean, they went out, and they might not have, come up in that style of music, but when they got there, they gave it 100%. And that's why people were so shocked by him, because they're like, where the hell did this come from? These guys are, whoa, crazy.
Yeah, that first record is it's amazing. It doesn't matter if those guys weren't into those style, they pulled it off, and it was great. Let me ask your experiences within the Christian, market, and the Christian, getting signed to labels and whatnot. Do you find that, you guys were treated well, or was it just something where, you guys were just basically, we just want to make some money off you guys? Did you ever have really good people in your camp when you were trying to get signed and tour or shows or, whatnot? Did you have good people really looking after your interests?
There were good people, but for the most part, no one really knew what they were doing.
Okay.
And then a lot of times there were thieves at the top. We got burned on every record deal. So two different labels for the Crucified. Now, the first one, we were signed to Narrow Path, but it wasn't the owner of Narrow Path that burned us. It was the owner of Pure Metal, or someone from Pure Metal, which was the distribution company. And then when we were on Ocean Records, here we are once again. We have no idea. We'd never get statements. How much did you sell? Who knows? But once again, a lot of it had to do with Word Incorporated, which we thought, Word Incorporated was this huge Christian distribution company. They had Amy Grant and all this stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then they didn't do anything with our record, didn't do anything with it. But we have no idea, if we certainly didn't make any money, and I don't know how much money people above us made. But then with, same thing happened with me on Applehead, same label, Ocean. I don't know what it sold. And then with the Manier thing, Rex Records, REX.
Yeah.
They were honest and fair, but they ran out of money. So it's kind of funny that the last payment I got from them was a big box they shipped to me of like 300 cassette tapes.
Yeah.
This is like after I'm not even the Crucified. Like, what the heck am I going to do with these? I hauled that box around from apartment to apartment for probably 10 years.
Yeah.
I took it, and I took the whole box, and I took like 5 cassette tapes out just to save and give to friends as like gag birthday gifts down the line, which I did. The rest of them, I dumped them in the trash can, threw them away.
That's so sad.
So very much so. There's definitely some shady thievery going on there, but more than that, it was a bunch of people who didn't know how to do what they proclaimed they knew how to do. And that was at the infancy of that market too.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it blew up later, like you talked about with Jim, with Tooth and Nail and all that stuff. That got huge in Solid State. All of a sudden, you have, and there always were bands that were, you know, being Christian bands because they thought, oh, well, we can get signed easier,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but they weren't really, that wasn't really the case with them. But probably even more once that label blew up huge,
Yeah.
you know, had more people jumping on the bandwagon. But yeah, it's in the shows we would play, a lot of them were a joke. We'd go on tour, and you know, you get some, every once in a while you'll get some idiot promoter, you know, and you're playing this show at a church or something, that's the venue,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't got the money to pay you, you know, and it's like, well, you know, we're doing it for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you know, I don't think God's not going to put gas in the tank of that van right there,
Yeah.
and it's not going to drop money out of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you cough up what you signed to pay us? There was one guy, I remember, I think this might have been our very last like tour, because we never went out for very long.
Yeah.
I think the last time we went out that I was in the band, it was for 6 weeks. Jim said 3, but I remember 6 weeks.
Okay.
But 6 weeks with like 2, maybe 3 shows in a week. You know what I mean? So
Weird.
Yeah, there just weren't places to play. And yeah, there was one guy that he didn't have the money. We got all our gear out. He locked the door and he bailed, took off, you know.
Yeah.
And that our manager at that time, who was on the road with us, was a retired cop. And so of course he had his gun with him, and he was going back to knock on the door with his gun and say, look, give us some money.
Yeah.
We got this RV that's really expensive to rent, you know.
Yeah.
We're already sleeping in it.
Gas plus, man, we need to eat. We need, you know what I mean? If a tire pops, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I mean, we got, and that's my whole thing. Like I was talking with Jim, is that, you know, I've never believed that music should be a ministry. I think it should be a business. I think once you put ministry into it, you open the floodgates for people to take advantage of people that are trying to do the right thing, whether they're blind to it or not. You know, I think as a business, it should be, we're a band, we might have this belief core structure, but this is what we're doing as a band. And that's, I think that, you know, and it's unfortunate that so many Christians have ripped off so many Christians.
Yeah.
In the name of, you know, in the name of the Lord, you know, like, well, give it to the Lord, you know. It's like, how about you give it to Jim and Greg and Jeff and Mark so they can pay their bills?
Yeah.
You know, so they can, you know, raise their families and they can get to work.
Wouldn't that be the more Christian thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
Is to pay someone to make sure they can take care of their life when they came all the way out. It's my bass player and I, we have this conversation all the time, and there's still a lot of Christian, I'll say nostalgic bands or guys kind of trying to come back in.
They're just trying to make money off of it, man.
But there's a lot of them that are still willing to go play for nothing. And my bass player, Jamie's his name, and we're like, no, that is not going to happen. You know, first of all, we don't want to go play churches and things like that. We want to play clubs and concerts, shows. We want to open up for bigger bands. We want to play with kick-ass bands.
Yeah.
If that happens to be a Christian one, then great. Like a great show. Perfect example is Demon Hunter recently came to Nashville. Living Sacrifice opened up. Place was sold out.
Yeah.
You know, there's a perfect example of a show where they're playing in a market where they're getting paid and they're paying the other bands. It's packed out, you know. And that's what I would want to do, you know, going back into it, not going into say, you know, whether I need the money or not. You know, not going and say, hey, well, you know, we'll play for, just cover our gas or whatever. No, we're still a band. We're still a band, and we're going to come perform and entertain, you know, whether the entertaining happens to have Christian lyrics or not, we're still entertaining, and you're charging at the door. So give us our cut.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, maybe towards the end of the Crucified, let me ask you this straight up, man. Are you still as heavy of a believer in your 20s as you are today, almost in your 40s?
I'm more of one now than I ever was.
And what keeps you that? What keeps you in
Well,
that?
I'll start back at the beginning. So me being so young, starting, in this band and everything, that was pretty much right after I, became a Christian. I've
Mhm.
been going to church for a while, but so I became a Christian, and then the church I was kind of brought up in through um through all of high school was very legalistic, um and judgy.
Mhm.
Especially, I don't know how much, say, the youth leaders were, but the kids sure were. So that made me
Oh
feel
yeah.
like the whole thing was. Um, so when I, you know, became a Christian, and especially once I started playing in the band, we formed the band, I just assumed that I was supposed to only hang out with Christians now. So I kind of turned my back on my close friends.
Mhm.
Well, guess who my close friends are today? My old friends that I turned my back on. You know what I mean? Those were my true friends.
Mhm.
The Christian friends from youth group kind of went on, after growing up and stuff. But so I grew up in with that, having the hell scared out of you, you
Mhm.
know,
Definitely.
and
How old are you real quick? How old are you?
so that was at like 14,
No,
you
I mean,
know.
how old are you now?
Oh, I'm 53.
Okay, so you're about 6 years older than I am. So I mean, and you grew up in that, demonic entry with music and movies and the fear tactics that the religious right gave.
So,
What's that?
well, so the thing was, though, it didn't come from my home. Now, I grew up in a Christian home,
Okay.
yet so I've got a dad who was district attorney at that time, later judge, mom who's politician's wife. So they attend church. Um, they do. My mom does a lot of stuff in the community.
Hmm.
Family's got to look right. Well, I end up with my sister has always been okay, but as soon as she was 18, she's like, out.
Yeah.
She went and got married and been married a couple times after that, but she immediately put a big old space between her and my parents.
Hmm.
Well, my mom, really, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, and then you got my brother John, who has used drugs a lot in his life, and alcoholic and stuff, and he's like a self-destructive guy. He can
Mhm.
never keep his shit together.
Yeah.
And then my brother Brett, who is Jim's best friend, he OD'd in 2000.
Oh
you
man.
he had multiple DUIs, in the city that my dad was DA. So you'd think, like, how embarrassing, that the district attorney's own children are just off the charts. I
Yeah.
never got in trouble back then. I didn't start my, indulgence until after the band.
Yeah.
But so I grew up that way with this feeling on me, um, and so after the Crucified, and then I had a band in between there called Sweet Mary, and this will explain how I got into playing covers. I actually started this band towards the end of the Crucified. That I started writing songs with this female singer, just straight ahead rock. We
Okay.
put the band together, um, and after the Crucified broke up, I went full time into that band. We got a production deal with Matt Sorum, drummer of Guns N' Roses.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we did that. Um, this was right at the time that music was changing, and Alanis Morissette had just come out, you
Hmm.
know. So anyway, the deal with Matt, he we went into fancy studios. I had Slash as guitar tech, putting my guitars on me,
All right.
restringing them every day, using Slash's amps, all this stuff. Like, finally in like a real studio, getting treated like a rock star.
Yeah.
Record, like 4 songs, Matt's sure we're going to get a deal. Then Matt takes it out, and at this time, Guns N' Roses is still playing to 200,000 people in like South America, but tanking in the USA.
Yeah.
You know, because people don't dig on Guns N' Roses anymore in the US. Because fickle people in the US will turn their back on the music they love in a second. It's not like Europe or South America, whatever. You know that.
Yeah.
So anyway, you know, he produced us pretty straight ahead rock and roll, and it didn't just fly with him. We kept playing. The last thing that happened was the vice president of A&R for Sony Records comes, sees us, loves us, starts coming to all our rehearsals, loves us, brings in a new producer that works well with female singers, because our singer and Matt got in some fights in the studio and stuff. Because it's different working with a female singer than it is with a dude. You know, it's a whole different thing, you know. So anyway, this guy, I don't remember his name, but this producer had worked with females before. So after about a month of him coming to our rehearsals, we're rehearsing like 5 nights a week, because the Sony guy, Ken Commissar was his name, he said, get the arrangements tightened up, the song's ready to go, I want to sign you. So that was the last time I saw him. And after about a month of working with this producer, he showed up and he goes, Ken left Sony, and now he's at another label that's not rock format. We got no deal, so I can't keep coming to rehearsals if we got no deal. So after that, I was just like crushed, you know, like I can't keep doing this. I can't be poor broke guy, you know, with nothing. But hey, I can make money playing music, doing covers. So I moved back up to Madera, where I grew up, and did a house gig at one of the bars in town 5 nights a week, and started playing, and that's where just the indulgence. I was like a kid in a candy store, man. I was a sheltered, largely sheltered kid, because my high school years, like my friends that are still my friends today, they partied in high school. I didn't, because I was rehearsing with the Crucified or at home practicing my guitar or goofing around with my Christian friends. So now all of a sudden I'm in bars. I can drink as much as I want. I can sleep with whoever I want, you know, and none of that was a problem for me at all. So do
you think at that time you were going through that discovery of yourself, do you really, in your heart of hearts, man, and this is not a typical question of like, I'm going to give the typical Christian answer because I don't want to upset my Christian fans, man, do you really think you were living in sin? Or do you think that you were just exploring your human journey that we all have to take, and just yours got delayed a little bit to maybe, you know, find out there are certain things in life that maybe aren't healthy, not God-driven, but not healthy and not good for you if you keep living a certain lifestyle that's dangerous and reckless?
That's an interesting question, because I feel a lot of things, like, you know, us sitting here drinking, you know, some people might say, well, Greg, you know, you shouldn't be drinking. And I drink often, very often, you know, but I don't get dog shit hammered like I used to, you know. I never miss work. I never don't take care of business, you know. I never neglect my family, you know. So at this point in my life, I'm 53 years old, and if you're going to tell me not to, well, I have one finger for you that you know, I'll show you.
I will say, man, your attitude is so refreshing. It's so refreshing. Other than like, and don't get me wrong, I mean, talking to Jimmy and George was great, but you could tell I felt that they wanted to say, especially Jimmy, maybe wanted to say some things that he just didn't want to say because he didn't want to upset people, or people that, you know, were fans of his, didn't ruffle any feathers, you know.
Yeah. I'll have to watch those two and see, because Jimmy's no squeaky wheel either.
Yeah.
You know? And
so that's the thing. this whole life, man, there's so much opportunity. And that's my whole, one of my bigger problems with Christianity, especially being when you're young and you're taught this is wrong, this is sin, this is hellfire, this is damnation, and you don't get to experience those things that your biological body through certain ages are going through. I loved Mark's book, man. I love that Mark was so open about, when he was saying, drugs and booze weren't my thing, but girls were. I would sleep with a ton of girls. I might feel bad about it for a minute. I might repent, but I kept doing it, And I think that was so refreshing because so many people just want to sweep it under the rug and not have that real discussion, where it's like, I don't think Mark was sinning. And maybe in his mind he was because of what he's taught. But I think he was just traveling a different path because sometimes A to B is not A to B. It takes you maybe A to F back to B,
Yeah.
There's such a different, travel path for everybody. But when you try and stunt what your natural body and what your mind and what your body and hormones are telling you, you have to experiment. You know what I mean? You have to, how can you know what your body's saying if you repress it and don't ever indulge in that a little bit? And I'm not talking about being a piece of shit, you know what I mean? Just getting wasted and run out. But if I would have gotten drunk with my uncle the first time at like 14 and puked, and was hung over the next day, these are life lessons that are not that should not be frowned upon or damnation upon because you have a belief system.
Just off my own experience, all I'll say is that when I was trying to bang everything that I could, every chick that I could, it consumed me. That was all I thought about. I'd be pulling up the gas station, looking around, where's a hot chick? Just like all I wanted to do is look at chicks and then, who could I get with? You know what I mean? So it wasn't good for me. I thought it was good, and it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun, but in the end, it was never satisfying because it just consumed my thoughts and all that.
But I will say a good strong relationship with someone you love and loves you back is always going to be way more fulfilling than any kind of just casual sex or even just a 2-week fling or whatnot, but I don't think that has to be the biblical reason of like, well, okay, you found that woman that you love, now you be together with the Lord. I just think, especially for the Bible, men are always such in control over women, where it was refreshing to hear Mark say, like, girls wanted to sleep with me and I didn't know how to deal with it, so I did. It's always it's always the guy's fault. And back then, you're being a horn dog, girls are just as slutty as guys are.
Oh, they sure are. And it's funny because some people don't believe that. So the last thing I heard you say is when you said girls are just as slutty. And
yeah, girls want
to a lot of times, especially in bars, they can be worse. I'm talking they are just conniving. They don't care if someone, if a dude has already got a girlfriend or a wife or whatever.
Yep.
A lot of them don't care, and it's sad, but it is true. Yeah. So
the years I did security, man, there were lots of women I saw do lots of crazy stuff just to get a backstage pass.
Yeah. Yep.
You're like, but I don't judge. I'm like, as long as it's consensual and nobody's getting hurt and you're having a good time, and hey man, enjoy your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have a good time with it. These will be your stories to tell your grandkids at an appropriate age.
Yeah.
So you were saying that because of your youth and up to what you are now, that you're even more grounded in Christianity.
Well, yeah. So I'll just go through. I'll go through the timeline, I guess, just to kind of explain, because during the Crucified, I was never like, man, I want to be in this ministry, go out and sing about God. I just always wanted to be in a band and play guitar, and it just so happened that it happened with these friends of Christians, with my buddies. And sure, yeah, I approved of the message and everything, but that was never like my thing. You know what I mean? I just always wanted to play music. And so anyway, going through the cover bands, you know, excessive drinking, a lot of stupid driving drunk and stuff. Luckily, I mean, there's blows my mind that I'm not dead. You know, I think the only reason I'm probably not dead is it would just absolutely break my parents' hearts. You know, well, my dad died in September, so it would have broke.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Hearts. Thanks. But then and I'll tell you this story. I've never told this on an interview, and this just goes to show that, you know, it sometimes it takes a long time to learn, and drugs can be a powerful thing. But the first night I ever did blow, it always scared me. I'd turned it down before because I'm like, oh man, cocaine, I can't do that stuff. That's like hardcore, right? So, but I'd be shit-faced wasted all the time. So I'm seeing this girl, her brother's always got it. We're back at the apartment. After I played, it's probably 3 a.m. Do my first 2 lines, and I was stone drunk. Do my first 2 lines. 5-10 minutes later, I'm sober.
Yeah.
You know, and then guess what happens? My cell phone rings, and it's my mom. She's crying, and she says, you have to come. You got to drive to Madera right now and pick up your dad and drive him to Santa Barbara, which is 4 hours away because your brother.
I'm from Ventura, which is half an hour down.
Yeah. So I was born in Santa Barbara, and was there until about 7. But she tells me my brother died. You need to drive your dad down there.
Oh shit!
He can't drive. Well, I couldn't have driven if I hadn't.
Yeah.
Used the.
I hear you.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay. Drove him all the way down there, you know, and now my brother OD'd, like I said, and you would think that the coincidence of that and the fact that my brother died would tell me maybe you shouldn't mess around with shit. You know what I mean? Did it? No. And by the way, I'm sniffing a lot, but that's from my allergies. No, which I'm going to turn around and wipe my nose right now.
No, this is an expose on Christians and drug dealers and blow. I'll be like, I told you, everybody, he's a blow guy. You know?
So I used to take allergy shots, and I used to get 2 in each arm at a time.
Yeah.
And they were like, I was at like 4 years in, right when COVID hit, and then they closed down all the allergy centers. So that's been, you know, probably 4 years now. And each year, when we first moved here to Tennessee, everyone's like, oh, the Tennessee allergies. I'm like, I'm fine, you know, but each year it's like they're starting to come back.
I hear you.
Anyway.
Yeah, you guys have fucking like 200% humidity down there, man. Jesus Christ, it's nothing but mold and spores and fungus.
There's so much mold. But so anyway, I didn't stop, you know, and what I learned from that night, I didn't learn anything from my brother dying. What I learned is, hey, I can drink more if I use the cock. Did I really just say that?
My friend.
if I use coke to knock it back. So that's what I did. I was never like a serious like coke junkie. Like only like 2 times did I ever do it without drinking, and I hated my life when I did it. Rotted my gut. I felt like crap.
Yeah.
So my nightly thing to do when I'd go to play is I would have like about 3 snake bites. I drank a lot of Yukon Jack at the time, and I'd have about 3 of those. And then on the break, I'd go out to my truck and just blast 2 rails, come in, pound more drinks, and do that, go home and do a little more of the same. And then I would balance it so I could still actually go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I did that for a long time. And then I met my wife. My wife and I actually met in the bar, go figure. She was in the bar. She was underage. She was 20, had a fake ID. And she would come into one of the bars I played and stuff, and a mutual friend actually introduced us. And when he had told her, oh, I've got the perfect guy for you. I think guys would get along so great. Tells me the same. And then he tells her one night, I want to introduce you to Greg. He's right over there. And she goes, the band guy? Are you out of your mind? The band guy? So introduced us. We went out, had a great time, and kind of hit it off from there.
Oh, you've been married now.
Yeah, we've been married 17, 18 years.
Nice. Congrats, man. Yeah, me and my wife, we have our 24th wedding anniversary in 3 months. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So yeah, I was 23 and she was 20. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. But I mean, is your wife pretty Christian, religious, or anything?
Well, so she grew up. Her mom just passed away a little over 2 years ago. Her mom, her whole life was a tweaker. Wow. And she finally OD'd, you know. And so Kim, my wife's name, she grew up wanting to get away as soon as she could. So when she was either 16 or 17, she moved out, got her own apartment. You know, she couldn't, her credit was already ruined from her mom because her mom put bills in her name as a teenager.
Utilities and shit like that. Yep.
So, but she went out and busted her ass working multiple jobs, you know, and made her own way. Good. And she never wanted anything to do with drugs. So, so the first time she and I started seeing each other, I wasn't doing it at that time. But so we met each other, went out a little bit, and then we didn't see each other for about 2 years. And then when we started seeing each other again, that's, you know, towards the tail end of it, because it was about 2 years I was on it. I tried so hard to get her to have fun with me with that crap, and she would just look at me in disgust when I did it. She didn't want no part of it because she grew up with it. You know, she grew up, her apartments getting, you know, mom's apartments getting raided and stuff. Yeah. She's sitting on top of the crap under the couch cushion and stuff, you know, crazy stuff. But yeah, so I just stopped because of her, because I'm like, you know what, she's a good girl, man. I'd better clean my act up if I want to hold on to a good one, you know? And so I did. And at the same time, I also joined a new cover band, and none of those guys did anything like that. The bass player always got stoned, but they didn't even drink when I joined them on stage. And then I joined them. I'm like, come on, let's party. They all started drinking after that, and drank. I was in the band for 14 years. But they weren't going to have it with the other stuff. So I just stopped, and it wasn't hard for me to do. I just quit, and I'm like, I got to knock this off.
So let me ask you this, and this is going to be a hard question. I'm going to get some ice. I'm going to let you think about it. The love of a woman made you stop drugs, not the love of Christ or any Christian kind of value that people would put on, because I don't believe in sin. I believe there's morality and ethics, and I think they're very different. I think morality is always going to be very religious based, where ethics is society based. You know, I don't say to people, I have morals. I have my own personal ethics, which I live my life by, because like I said, morals is more of a religious based ideology than ethics, you know? So at that point in time, even still being a Christian and going through things, you know, and I don't want to sound rude, man. Believe me. I respect you. I totally respect you, you know. But when you found something that actually was tangible, worthwhile, and worth changing for, very easy, you know. But at the whole time, even having that Christian either conscience or guilt or whatnot, that wasn't worth enough change, because you were still living the life you wanted to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's have a question. Give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna get some ice.
You know what? Can you pause that?
Yes.
Because I'm gonna go freshen up too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, give me 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay. So
when you found that
Right.
tangible, real thing that you could say, man, this is something that I would want to be a better person for, and not in a biblical sense, but just in a humanity sense, where I want to do right by this person. I want to be faithful to this person. I want to love this person and treat them right. You know, these are the qualities I think that are way more interesting in a human experience than having any kind of mythical or, supernatural being that has to guide me through the ethics that I choose, because I don't think God is a very moral being if there was a God.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So yeah. Um, I can't, I can't really answer that because at that time I wasn't, uh, you know, I wasn't praying, God help me stop this stuff.
Mhm.
So it wasn't both these things. It was just me making the decision, um, because I wanted to be a better person and have
Mhm.
good things in my life. And I also, at the same time, I also kind of changed my set of friends,
Mhm.
so I wasn't hanging out with all the losers that like to, you know, I really started seeing what, people, a lot of people in that were like,
Mhm.
just shady, thieving,
Oh yeah.
just not good people. But I never, through that time, I never stopped believing what I always believed, but
Mhm.
I certainly wasn't. I mean, at that time in my life, I can't even say how often I would, send up a prayer.
Mhm.
Maybe it was once a month, maybe it was less, maybe it was once every 6 months. I don't know. An interesting thing was, though, at the same time, um, the girl that I was seeing all through the drug use,
Mhm.
um, you know, when we would be hanging out in the apartment hot tub at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., still up
Yep.
because we're all gacked out,
Oh, yeah.
we would get in these really deep God conversations,
Okay.
which was a trip. Is like all of a sudden, well, because that stuff makes you want to talk,
Totally.
and it makes you start thinking about stuff,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
I think
like
some drugs actually open up other sensories in your mind that get to that point to where you're actually able to, have synopsises where you're actually in a deeper set of, I'm not going to say consciousness, but at least in a, you're open to the exploration of answers.
Well, and that's why, especially for artists, musicians, and stuff, that's why so many, fall prey to it, is
Mhm.
because, you can be so closed off. And then you just, I guess, with the relaxing or what now, maybe it'd be different if you're, tripping on acid or something, and you're really opening up to weird mind stuff or whatever. I don't know about that, but um,
Yeah, I'll tell you straight up,
there's
drugs were never my thing. I've done coke once, hated it. I did speed one time because I didn't even know I was doing speed. I thought it was just like a no dose, but I used to work security, and it was man, I was working, dude, 9 a.m. load in till 4 a.m. to the when the venue closed load out, and it was a crazy week. I worked like 6 7 days with like 2 hours of sleep every night, and I remember doing that speed, and yeah, I got through the night, man, but I hated the way it felt. I've always been a drinker, and I'm not saying that alcohol is better than drugs. I think anything that has a crutch on your life and a chokehold on your life is not a good thing, whether it's money,
yeah.
sex, drugs, anything. There's got to be a good balance in everything that you do. But yeah, drugs for me, I mean, I've seen it. I mean, like I said, when you guys would come down from Fresno and play Hollywood, especially back then, you saw it with all the hookers and the homeless and the drug addicts and whatnot. And I will say, Hollywood, they've cleaned it up. I miss that part of Hollywood. It's all Starbucks now, and it's kind of lame, but
Yeah, yeah, that's different. Yeah, for me, because I'm a somewhat introverted guy. Like if I'm around a bunch of people I don't know and stuff, I'm not a guy to go up and just start talking to people,
yeah.
So, that's why I liked it. It made me really come out of my shell.
Mhm.
Um, but Yeah, just and there's another. I got so just I'm so lucky that I never got popped for that
Yeah.
stuff. So careless with just leaving it around,
Mhm.
you know, doing it on stage. I mean, come on, you know.
That's
Uh,
rock and roll. On stage, that's different.
that's the way I looked at it. I mean,
You know?
there's one bar we played that I played there for years, and the one night um, he gave me a bottle of Yukon Jack and to like keep in the back. Well, I took it and put it on my amp, and I'm just
Oh yeah.
drinking it off. He absolutely loved it. Every night I would show up, he would come up at the first song, pop the top, give me the bottle of
Oh
regular.
yeah.
I'd put it on my amp, and he just loved it because it looked so cool. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Every once in a while, some chick would be like, "That's not really booze in there." I'm like, "Hey, have a swig."
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't pull a Dean Martin on people.
No,
Dean
no.
Martin's trick was
Yeah,
all the, when he would be on stage with his whiskey, it was apple juice.
yeah,
He
yeah.
was never drinking. He would drink,
Never
off stage,
off
but
stage,
during
but
the
not on.
performance,
Yeah.
it was always apple juice, But
Yep.
you'd have
Putting
that
on the
swagger,
show.
oh, I'm getting fucked up and drinking,
And he wasn't
and he wasn't. So,
drinking his
but I mean,
juice.
I've been there too, man. I remember we were playing a local show and it kind of sucked. And no, that's we were playing with Murphy's Law from New York, um, and they were supposed to play at 11. We played at 10. Well, they didn't show up till like 1 o'clock, and the bar's closing like in 35 minutes. So they show up, they haul us, dude. I'd been there since 7 o'clock, just pounding drinks with people. I was so fucked up. I literally sat on top of a pinball machine while we played our set. I was just like, I can't stand. I can
Yeah.
barely see. I'm like, I'll just do this. So I mean, I get that the hardcore rock and roll stuff, but I mean, just drugs, just
Yeah.
for me, just again, I mean, for other people too, drugs always just scared me. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even about getting busted, dude. I've been to jail plenty of times. I've been arrested a ton, but it's that, man, what if I like it too much and I can't control it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a scary thing.
It
Yeah.
is. Well,
Mhm.
so even back in the Crucified, man, like, and this is not me trying to get dirt or shame anybody, but I mean, I'm sure you guys had the Christian groupies, the partying, no, really nothing like that.
None of it. And before, when you were talking about Mark sleeping around and stuff, like that never happened in the Crucified.
Really?
He and I had we slept with our girlfriends, but we always had girlfriends.
Oh,
He may have done that after, or maybe at the very tail end of it when he moved away, but that wasn't going on during the band. None of us
huh.
drank, none of us partied, none of us did anything. Like, we were the most innocent probably out of any band there was. We didn't do
Wow.
any of that stuff.
Well, and that's why art's so
Well,
interpretive.
okay,
I mean, I'm
so
glad that you're here to tell me that, this about Mark, because I mean, I guess the one story that I was gonna, and it really has nothing to do with anything other than, I guess you guys played a huge festival kind of thing at the Staples Center, and in his book he talks about getting a girl pregnant, and because of the witness of the band, he was gonna tell you guys like, hey man, we can't do this anymore, but then she ended up not being pregnant. You know what I mean? But
she was his girlfriend.
okay,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, she was his girlfriend. I won't say her name on here,
yeah.
but yeah, and he didn't tell any of us, and that whole thing got ruined because he was going to, and this when I finally heard this story, I'm like, dude, why would you do it that way? He was going to announce it from the stage that he was quitting and bowing out or whatever,
Because he had
without
such a
talking
heavy
to us
heart.
before, without talking to us. So he had this vision of doing it in front of this big, huge crowd, but it all got jacked up because, first of all, at that show we weren't supposed to close it. It was the last night of it. I think it was Sunday night.
Okay.
And we were supposed to be on earlier, and then the Altar Boys, I think it was supposed to close the show.
Yeah, it was them or Undercover or something like that.
I think it was the Altar Boys.
Okay.
Undercover wasn't there.
Okay.
And so anyway, back before we're supposed to go on, at some point in time they come back and they say, and here's probably what it was: Altar Boys didn't want to go on after us.
Yeah.
And I say that Mike Stan, he was like a huge fan of ours because we opened up from them. It opened up for them when we were really young, when I was probably 15, 16 years old.
That's cool.
And he was the coolest guy, and he thought we were just like the greatest punk rock band.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I remember the promoter was sitting there saying, okay, picture this, whatever band. And then he goes, Altar Boys, the Crucified, like selling it to us. Yeah. So we go on really late. I forget what time it was on Sunday. Half the crowd had already gone home because they'd been there all day long.
Yeah.
And Mark was still going to do this thing on stage, if I'm relaying the story correctly.
Totally.
What happened is the promoter or whoever, someone from the side of the stage was telling him, one more song. And there's actually video footage of that on our DVD. You can see him like going over to the side and then coming back and shaking his head. I never knew why he was so pissed off about that.
Yeah.
Come to find out later, he had this thing planned that he was usually saying. But it was we were an innocent group of boys, for the most part. I mean, before the band, I'd been drunk and stoned a few times. Jim had done the most of anything before he became a Christian. And my brother would always be drinking when my parents were at the house and chewing. And I could still see Jim leaning back in the couch with his chewing and his spit cup, drunk. And, they were probably freshmen in high school.
Yeah.
But
it's crazy. If there was anything you could, in the Crucified years, would you have changed anything, or would you have just left it the way it is? If there's anything, maybe you're like, I wish I would have been able to convey this or do this, what maybe would have been
better? Yeah. I mean, if I would have known what was brewing, what was on the horizon, because when I don't know if I got kicked out. And okay. So let me explain that. Will kind of give you an idea of how we were such an innocent band. Well, our very first, a rule was set at the very beginning when our very first bass player, a girl he was seeing from youth group, got pregnant. So what did we do? Well, the right thing to do is kick him out of the band.
Yeah.
Well, and then I don't know if the youth group, the church told him he had to do it, but I remember that poor guy got up on the stage in front of the whole youth group and confessed everything. And I thought, this is horse shit.
Yep.
This is absolute horse shit.
Yep.
And now I'm the youngest guy in the band. Jim's calling pretty much all the shots because he's the oldest guy. I don't know if he just decided, well, he's got to go or what. But so here's what happens later down the road is, and now at this time, I was already burnt on the Crucified. We were not getting along at all. The stuff we were writing for the third record sucked. We couldn't, I had no ideas anymore for thrash. Jeff was so hard to write songs with. He hated everything. Jeff and Jim, we all lived together for a long time. They almost got into
worst mistake ever. Never live with your bandmates.
Three of us, one apartment. They would get into it all the time, and then Jim was just kind of always like Jim, but he still held that I'm older than you role model, in which he was alluding to in your interview with them, is that he was always that way. And so anyway, what ends up happening with me later down the road, the girl I'm seeing becomes pregnant. Well, what's the thing to do? Kick him out of the band. So
and this is after Pillars or during Pillars, or
this is after Pillars. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is when we're writing the third
record.
And we'd gone in and demoed a couple songs that had been sent to other labels, because what our label was trying to do was trying to sell us to a secular label, bigger label, right? Which I found out later an offer had been made and they turned it down because they thought there was big dollars. Anyway, I called to tell the guys, and I called Jim, and this is funny because the way I thought it was going to go is I thought the church I was going to, I thought the pastor and my parents were going to tell me, well, you need to get married.
Yeah.
I thought the band was going to be cool about it. It was the exact opposite. Jim told me, well, you can't play in the band anymore. And I said, yeah, I'm fine with that, because really I'm over it anyway. I wanted out of the band because I wanted to focus on the next band I was in, Sweet Mary, because I had dollar signs in my eyes, because that was commercial music, So I didn't have a problem with that. I didn't find out till years later that Jeff and Mark had a problem with that. And I don't think either one of those guys was ever behind that decision.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was I don't know if it was just a rule that was set from so long ago, or if Jim just vetoed and said, no, it's got to happen,
Well, especially if we did it to this guy, why are we not going to do it to this guy?
Right. So anyway, yeah, I was out of the band, and we had, I guess I didn't even know, or I don't remember, but I guess we'd had a big tour booked with like 40 dates or something. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they got a replacement for me. A buddy of ours named John, he was from another band down in Southern California, and he came up and was rehearsing.
What band was he from?
He was from a band called Judgment. They were out of, I forget where they played with us a couple times down in San Diego area at a place called Kit Carson Theater.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Those were good shows.
Like 2 times. And that was on my way to Tijuana. So.
Yeah. So, and he was ecstatic because it was a step up in bands for him, and then they pulled the plug. I don't remember which one of them pulled the plug, but just pulled the plug on the whole thing.
Shit, man, I would have been ecstatic too, man. Shit, I'm 47 years old, a fucking hardcore atheist, and if I got the call from you tomorrow, like, hey, man, we're gonna do a reunion or something, and Jeff can't do it. You want to come jam with us and see if it works? I'd be like,
hell yeah,
yeah. I'd be like, shit. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but like my first tattoo when I was 14 was your guys' logo.
Yes, yeah, I saw that
it's still my favorite tattoo, and I'm 47 and probably 110 tattoos later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still my favorite tattoo, man.
Oh, and I want to get to at some point on the conversation, once we get off that, talk about your business, and then something that we started and just how cool.
Sure, ask me. What part of my business? What are we asking here?
Well, after we finish this whole subject.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I guess we ended up reverting back, but once I met, started seriously dating my wife, joined the new cover band, and then that band, I made a lot of money in that band for cover bands. And so she and I bought 3 houses in 3 years because she bartended. I played in the band. We were both in the business, and then we got married. And then when she finally got pregnant and Maddie was born, after Maddie was about a year old, we were like, we got to clean up our act. What's going on? So we started going to church, and then it wasn't long before the sound guy knew who I was. So he caught me on the way out one day and like, hey, we got to get you up to play with the worship band sometime, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I've started doing that. I played with them for probably 4 years, either guitar, bass, or drums, whatever we were short on, whichever musician we were short on, and it would go like this. It would be like, for
Yeah.
6 months, there are no drummers available. For the next 6 months, there's no bass players. You know,
Did you get paid being on the worship team?
What's that?
Did you get paid being on the worship team, or was it a volunteer?
So it started off as a volunteer thing, because everyone volunteered, and but they wanted me there all the time because I could cover multiple instruments, and I did it well. And as the worship leader told me, he said, it just, no matter what instrument you're on, it sounds better when you're here.
Right on.
So let's just make a position for you. We'll create you're going to be an assistant worship leader. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And what tripped me out about it so much is, now this is where, and I'm going to preface it with this, is whenever I look at like all the things that pisses me off sometimes, or pisses a lot of people off about Christianity, is Christians.
Always.
It's people, and people everywhere let me down. They let you down, you know? And so this started blowing me way out the church, that I'm like, dude, I'm still playing every Friday, Saturday night. You know the songs I'm playing. I mean, we play bad songs. You know what I mean? Bad songs.
Well, what's bad?
Okay.
I mean, were you guys playing fucking, black metal from Venom? Were you?
No, but like, okay, there was a song by Kid Rock that came out. I'm gonna F you like I'm never gonna see you again. I could say it on your show. I'm gonna fuck you like I'm never gonna see you again. And then Crazy Bitch. And so songs that are not really appropriate for someone who's working for the church.
Okay.
You know what?
I see that correlation.
And so, but they're just like, and one day I asked the worship leader, I'm like, dude, don't you have a problem with this? And he said, that's you. That's between you and God. You know, and I was blown away, because here's why. Growing up in that legalistic church, I never experienced grace.
Yes.
I didn't even understand what it was. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait. I thought there had to be all these rules, one fits all set of rules, you know, and I'm doing all this wrong on Friday and Saturday, and then I'm getting up on Sunday and coming here and playing these worship songs, which I took very seriously, you know. It's because I'm like, okay, I'm up here participating, and then later in that 4 years or whatever, singing these worship songs with all these people out there. I don't want to be a phony, you know. And they were just like, dude, that's between you and God. And that just blew me away. I didn't even know how to take that, you know. And then I just learned there more that it's your own deal, you know. It's not.
Well, and I agree with that. I think spirituality has definitely, it's a one-on-one with whatever, if you want to call it a creator or whatnot, the universe, whatever entity and whatnot. But the problem is that when you have such old Bronze Age beliefs that bleed into a very advanced society, where there's no room for real interpretation, there's no room for maybe allegorical questions. It's, this has to be this or this. I mean, it's actually pretty funny, because I mean, I've gotten a lot of people that have messaged me. They're like, especially growing up in a very strict Christian home, they're like, how are you and your parents? And I'm like, me and my parents are cool, but I wanted to do this, and I've asked my mom to be on my show. She won't do it.
You won't do it?
She won't do it. Because, and I said, Mom, I love you. I'm not going to be rude to you, but I'm going to come after things. I'm going to come after you. Like, and I will say, like, this has been a great conversation. I usually hit a little harder, but, with the conversation, I think it's been a perfect night. This has been a great conversation. Not so heavy enough. It's been good. But, and I told my mom, I'm like, I'm not trying to disrespect you, but I'm going to go hard on you, where I'll give her a synopsis of, this throughout history. And she'll like, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm like, how can you so blindly, with blinders on, believe something that you've never even experienced in the alternatives, where you don't know this or this or this, you know, especially when it comes to like rabbinical studies with Jewish people. You know what I mean? Like that is the whole basis for what the New Testament came. And if you can't even talk about that, how are we going to even have a clear conversation? And I think that's where, you know, a lot of people were just giving me the same old, like, well, you know, Jesus said this, I hope you, you know, repent before you die in your sin. I'm like, you're not answering questions, man. You're saying the same status quo everybody says. I have no problem with Christians. You know, that's fine, man. I'm a full believer of you live your life the best way you can. Don't let your religion hinder my life or anybody else's life. You know, we were supposed to, you know, and I said this to one guy when I responded to him. I'm like, you're an American. He was like, yeah. I'm like, you're a patriot? And he's like, of course. I'm like, then whatever happened to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness based upon what you want? You know, you can't give me your Bronze Age theories demanded in, you know, you can if you live in Saudi Arabia or, you know, God forbid, you know, North Korea, you know, those kind of things. But here, we're supposed to be able to live our life the best way we can. And if that's you worshiping Jesus, great. But if it's me and not, don't force it upon me and don't force it upon my laws. That's where I'm at with my atheism.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. Yeah.
You know,
totally.
So anyway, okay. So you're going to ask me about my business.
You know,
you can respond, but either way. Sorry, I got a little heavy for you for a second.
Okay. No, I was just going to ask you because so you're a body piercer, right?
Yep.
And you own a tattoo shop, right?
Yep.
So you've had that for like 30 years or something?
I've been, this September will be 30 years I've been in the business. The shop I currently own is the fourth studio I've owned in my career.
Nice. Yeah. I was just bringing it up because we recently, we're about 3 months in. My wife opened a clothing boutique. So she's a nurse.
Oh, yeah.
But she quit nursing. She always wanted to open a boutique, you know, and finally did it. Like I said, I've been a special ed teacher for 17 years.
That's
not
great.
going back next year. I need to be available for my mom because she's, you know, going to be 85 this month, and I told my dad on his deathbed I'd take care of her, and the only way that's really going to happen is if I'm freed up. But the freedom in owning your own business is amazing. So you know, you've been crazy. Living that for so long now. It's like, well, now it's like, I'm not guaranteed that I'm getting this steady paycheck, but you get out what you put in. And just like I said, the freedom of not working for the man.
Yep. Well, I will say for the first 15 years of my
how
career,
has it been for you?
The first 15 years of my career, I worked for other shops. I was late into the game, and I'd work for people, and oh man, you know, I'd move around. Man, shoot, I moved. My parents are from Kansas originally, but when I was, they moved back to Kansas, and we moved. My parents split up for a little bit, then they got back together, and I moved to Kansas, and I had my own first shop in '96 that was small. Then I moved to Kansas City in '98 and helped a friend open a shop, and it didn't do well. But I got married at the time, and I moved back to LA, and I was working at Venice Beach. And I was driving from Ventura 70 miles each way to work every day. 70 miles. Boom. Ouch. Yeah. And, you know, it was rough. And then moved back to Kansas City and then worked for a few more shops. And finally, in 2009, I opened my first shop. And luckily, it was right when like LA Inc. and Miami Inc. were huge. And I found a perfect location right next to a Hooters. And gangbusters. And I was there for about 8 years, and then I had some people leave, and my lease was coming up, and I was having issues with my landlords. But I had with a friend opened up another studio, but I was only part owner. And this is where it kind of gets a little heavy because the couple people I brought on to work at the studio was an artist I'd been friends with for almost 20 years. And while I wasn't there, they were basically ganging up on my business partner and forced him to sell their shares to them. And so when my lease came up and I had other people leave, I was like, all right, I'm just going to shut this one down. I'm going to go over here. I've got another shop. I'm good. And so by the time I got there, then they started doing to him what they did. They're doing to me what they did to him. And that year was hell. So I finally was like, you know what? I'm just going to sell my shares to you guys and move away. And, this was somebody I considered a friend for 20 years. And so I left that shop, and dude, I mean, luckily I had enough cash to sustain me, but I sat around at home for about 3 months, just depressed, I mean, I was killing the whiskey. I was killing the rum. I was pissed off. I mean, fantasies of just, revenge and that kind of stuff. And so finally I was just like, man, I can't work. I'm institutionalized, man. I can't work for anybody but myself. You know what I mean? I have to do it my way. And I've been lucky because I've worked in the business since I was so young. I've never really had a real job. I've done this, and the only other real job I ever did was do professional security for bands, which was still kind of doing my own thing. I've worked, Motel 6, a couple weeks and be like, fuck this, I'm out. I've worked at Denny's for a week and be like, fuck this, I'm out. You know what I mean? Like, I've had bullshit jobs. I'm sorry, let me take that back. All you hardworking Americans, thank you for what you do. I'm sorry. You making me pancakes when I'm drunk is a noble fucking cause, man. So I'm not saying it's bullshit. It just didn't work for me. So I've been at my new place almost 6 years now. I've got a good crew, and man, it always just hurts when people that you care about, especially, and this is not a Christian based anything or secular based, just bad people are bad people, you know what I mean? And opportunistic people that see what you have and want it, and I'm that guy, man. Like, if say you and I are hanging out and we're going out, and man, I want to go to the VIP, I want to drink, I want to have a good time, and you're like, man, I can't afford it. I'll be like, come with me, I got you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just that guy. I'm like, man, let's go have a good time together. I don't want anybody to miss out on the fun that I'm having. So therefore, I've put up a lot of the money, in my bands. I was always the guy that I paid for all the merch. I ran the band. I paid for the practice space. When it was time to load up, I was the guy like, all right, guys, you need to be here at this time. Let's load up. We got to be at the venue at this time. I was always like Jim, the responsible one. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But it's just me. I'm not trying to say that, people aren't, but I was a leader. I'm like, dude, we got it. If we want to do it. And what really kind of broke me was with Brass Knuckle, my Irish band. We had my guitar player Sweeney worked at a record store, and he was friends with an A&R guy that worked at Hellcat Records, Tim Armstrong from Rancid's label. And so he kind of was looking at us for a bit, and he kind of was like, well, we talked to the label, and they'll record you. They'll put out your record. You're not going to make dick off the record, and they're not giving you tour support, but you need to do 150 dates a year. I'm like, well, if we do maybe like 45 days on, come home for a month, another 45 days on, home for a month, we could make it work. Nobody had the balls to do it. I'm like, let's try, man. This is our dream. Let's try it. And that's kind of like where I like working for myself, because at the end of the day, if I make money or don't make money, it's based on me. But
did they just not want to leave?
They didn't have the guts to quit
their job. They didn't want to quit their jobs.
They didn't have the balls, and I mean, and I'm not saying that, it would have been easy. I was married at that time. I had a 7-year-old daughter, it wouldn't have been easy, but, and my wife has always been my support system from day one. She's like, you do what you got to do. You know what I mean? I'll be here. I'll take care of certain things. Just make sure that, the shit's paid for, but she always had my back, but nobody had the guts to do it. I'm like, even if we fall on our ass, man, let's try, I mean, that was the one regret I have as a musician. I've played tons of cool shows and did some festivals and whatnot. I never got to do a tour. Never. Mm-hmm. With the band on the road for a couple of weeks, playing here and there. That's the one regret I have at 47, where if I did do another project, which I am actually kind of thinking about doing something, but it'll be just a local thing. I want to record, maybe put out some vinyl, some merch. If a cool show comes along, dude, I'm almost 50, man. I don't, I mean, you're awesome. You're 53, you're kicking ass, but I just don't have it in me to, again, like I said, when you've had disappointment and the promises and the promises and the promises, and just like, I make too much money doing what I do to sacrifice that. So my shop is my focus.
Yeah, I get that for sure. And I understand that, yeah, it's because, like I said before, we did that one like 6 weeks out. Other than that, it was just most was a couple weeks, and that was only 2 or 3 times we did it. So I've never gotten to like tour either, you know. But I love going from one town to the next and staying in hotels and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I could do it. I wouldn't have definitely wouldn't want to wanted to have done it, you know, a couple decades ago, or you know, in that certain time of my life where I couldn't have handled,
Yeah.
you know, so I'd probably be dead. But
Yeah.
I
See,
could
I could have done
do
it
it.
20 years ago when I was
Yeah.
like not used to comfortability, where I was still
Yeah.
poor. Now that I'm making some money and having a good life, I'm like, I'm not sleeping on a couch, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have a
right,
bed
huh?
I'm sleeping in. I'm gonna shower. I'm gonna eat real food. You know, it's like 6 guys staying in one Motel 6 room. That's not happening. I have money. I'll make my own room. You know.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, man, that's the narcissist in me. I'm like, share. I'm not sharing with you. I want my own room.
You'll
You
be
know?
the one guy in his own room, and all the other guys are packed in one room on their own.
Fuck them. I'm getting my own room.
Yeah.
You know, But I mean, it's one of those things. You know, but even though you didn't get maybe the huge tour and whatnot, man, but like your guys' imprint is so prevalent. I mean, no matter what has happened in that band's career or whatever bands you've done, man, and not to discount any other side projects, but man, the Crucified will always go down as a legend.
Yeah.
And like you said, I just wish, there would have been somebody in your corner that said, man, we can take this album to the next fucking level. That it doesn't have to be the Christian market. Because that, like I said, man, I will put that album up against Rain and Blood, Suicidal Tendencies, Lights, Camera, Revolution, DRI, I mean, I would put that album up against all those bands because it doesn't matter the message or whatever the content of the lyrics are. The music is that fucking good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but like I said, the label was trying to sell us to another label. And I never heard this before the band was over, but years later, I think it was when we were doing some reunion shows in 2009, Mark was telling me what happened after, and I'd never heard it. And I don't remember the amount he said, but for some reason I've had stuck in my mind was that our label Ocean was offered 80 grand to buy out the contract, which would have been huge then for them, huge. And he turned it down. So when you were asking before, like, if there was anything you would do different, well, if I would have known that things were gonna, keep moving up, I would have try to maintain interest in it and not be given up on it,
But do you think, man, maybe you guys are like Seinfeld, where you guys bowed out at the right time? You know what I mean? Instead of keep going and becoming what you were.
Well,
boom,
yeah,
man. You walked away at the perfect time. You guys were gone at the perfect time.
Well, that would certainly be better than if we would have went and done some third shitty record. You know what I mean?
Was that third record? I mean, I heard the couple tracks that came off it, and I will say, no disrespect, they were okay. I mean, Straining Life and the other one, I mean, I was like, the music was great. I thought the lyrics were pretty weak. You know what I mean? But I mean,
those two songs were probably the best ones that we had written. The other ones, and I had this memory for a long time that we had this great third album that we were working on, and then about that same time at 2009 when we were playing these reunion shows, our old manager had a cassette tape, boombox tape of the songs we'd written, and I listened to them and I was like, this is what I thought was like some killer stuff. It was just churned out, just discombobulated, boring ideas when I listened to it after so many years. you
Yeah.
know, and at that point I was like, I'm glad this didn't turn into an album, because you could just tell that we weren't together like we were when we wrote Pillars.
Oh, totally. I mean, and me and Jamie were talking about that too, where everybody always comes at him is like, do Weapons 2, do Weapons 2, man. You cannot go back in time and create something that was a vacuum. You know what I mean? You either evolve and do something different that other people can enjoy, and that's the thing, man. If you keep reproducing the same thing over and over and over again, then it's not special anymore.
Unless you're ACDC, then you can do it. They've been writing the same song for 50 years.
little funny story about ACDC. Are you a fan of Slade?
I never got into them.
Not Slade, I'm sorry, Rose Tattoo.
Never heard of them.
Oh, okay. So Rose Tattoo is another, they sound like ACDC, band from Australia. And the label that was looking at them was like, either going to pick ACDC or Rose Tattoo. And they're so similar, like vocally. Look up Rose Tattoo. One of their best songs is Nice Boys Don't Play Rock and Roll. I mean, if you love rock and roll, you'll love this song.
I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, ACDC.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
Rose Tattoo?
Rose Tattoo. They only really have one. Their first record's pretty much their only really good one, but yeah, Rose Tattoo, they were looking at both, and they were like, we're going to go with ACDC. But honestly, I think Rose Tattoo's the better of the band.
And Rose Tattoo was probably like, dang it, we missed it.
Well, moving forward in your life, man, still following, Christianity and whatnot, like I'm going to have to ask this delicately. Because, I mean, like I said, people, message me and they're like, dude, you're such an asshole. You're so mean. You're so angry. I'm like, I'm not angry. I'm passionate in what I believe in. And I think everybody should be passionate. Passionate in what they believe in. Moving forward in your life, you obviously seem like you're a very down-to-earth guy. All right, I'm just going to say, man, what keeps you in this religion? What keeps you day to day? I mean, the prayers are fine. I have people email me like, well, I have seen the Holy Spirit. God has talked to me. I'm like, you guys are fucking crazy. You know what I mean? Like, if you really believe you heard an audible fucking voice from heaven tell you what to do, you're a fucking lunatic. You know what I mean? I understand, the Holy Spirit, where it's supposed to speak to you internally and you're able to, diverse all those kind of, ideas. But at the end of the day, what makes you say, man, I'm on the right path for when I die, this is going to be my salvation, my reward?
Well, first of all, what you're saying about that, like the Holy Spirit speaking to you and stuff like that, I'm not a person that is open to things, and some people are. I've been in places where supposedly haunted things have happened. I don't experience anything. I'm like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
And then I have a friend who's like white in the face telling me that something just pushed him out of the way, and then
that's also they're susceptible in their head because they want to experience that.
Well, and there are people that are more in tune or whatever, I don't know, or claim to be. I have never experienced any big moment or aha moment or anything like that. For me, and especially over the last however many years, like I said, I am not a holy roller at all.
Really?
We don't go to church all the time, especially since we've moved out here.
Do you still believe the Bible is the 100% word of God? It cannot be challenged, cannot be interpreted other than what the word says. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
I know. And me personally, I haven't done a ton of studying and things to be able to say this or that. My experience has just been over the last several years, probably over the last, I'm going to say 10 years,
Okay.
for me, is the more that I pray, the more consistently I pray, and the more, and I read scripture almost every day, but I don't study. I just have a habit of reading it. I have a Bible app, so it has a verse of the day. I read the whole chapter. Some days I get something out of it. I'm like, wow, that's really great.
Yeah.
Some days I get nothing out of it.
Yeah.
But the more I consistently do that, the better my life has been in more things, just especially the things that I pray for seem to come together.
Okay.
Things seem to happen, positive things. So, I mean, that
No, totally.
that's my experience.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the thing. I cannot discount your personal interpretation or experience. I can't, because it's personal. It's your experience.
It's mine.
Yeah, I can't tell you didn't hear that. I don't believe people hear the voice of God. I don't believe people, are hit by the Holy Spirit and speak this weird, crazy language and dance around. I don't believe that. I think it's fake. But I cannot tell you.
And I couldn't tell you that, well, that is true, because it's never happened to me.
Exactly.
How can I tell you that?
But even if it has happened to you, even if you are a, spirit tongue speaking, fucking crazy, dancing, speaking to the Holy Spirit, you still can't convince me or tell me that it's real. That's might be real in your head and in your experience, but that doesn't translate over to my life. And I will say, especially being from the church of evangelicals, you know what I mean? Like, I will straight up admit it. Like, I pretended to speak in tongues because I wanted to seem more Christian. You know what I mean? The Holy Spirit, and I mimicked what I saw because it was the best way to have either the pastor or the congregation or the parents or your peers say, God's doing something in your life.
He's doing something in your life. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was a fugazi. Complete fraud, especially for me, like with children, like if you want to have a belief system, that's fine. But there's no way from the age of 0 till at least 21, and you're going to have the capacity for the kind of eternal message that they're trying to, present to you, because you haven't even, Jesus Christ, man, they're trying to teach kids, about damnation and hell at 5 years old. Can't even tie your fucking shoes. You know what I mean?
Right.
How do you have the frontal lobe to understand regret or damnation or consequences? You know what I mean? Don't touch the stove. You touch it, you burn yourself. Yeah. That's a legitimate consequence, because then you're like, oh, that hurt. So I mean, I don't know. I find the grooming of Christianity so much more despicable, because you make people grow up in fear. You make people say, I have to live this way. I have to believe this way. There is no other branch I can go off to, because if I do, I'm not accepted in the church. I will have, it's like the Mormons, when people move out of Mormonism, dude, family disconnected.
Cut off, right?
Yeah, cut off. I just think as a society, if we just keep moving forward with humanity on our mind, what's best for everybody, and including Christians too. I am not excluding Christians at all. Everybody should be able to live the best life they can, as long as it's consensual. I think that drugs should be legal. I think that prostitution should be legal. I think there are so many things that we put so much dampers on in life that make people seek out things, and if they were available to us, maybe we wouldn't have the problems we have.
Well, that's true in a lot of cases, for sure. But until they figure out how to tax it.
Tax it, man. Missouri, which is 2 miles that way, just did complete legal marijuana, and they're making a shit ton. Colorado, which is our neighbor, complete legalization, shit ton. Oklahoma, come on, guys, let's move into the 20 fucking century, man.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, which I don't give a fuck if you paid me $1 million, I would not live in Oklahoma. Oklahoma sucks. Below us, complete legalization. North Dakota above us, completely. We are the only state that does not even have medicinal yet. Tax that shit, man. Put that shit towards good stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, why is it that I can't smoke a joint with you and be like, man, I feel hungry and tired, but, you know, and no offense to us drinking because I'm a drinker, but I can go through almost half a bottle of Sailor Jerry, and, you know, if I go out and wreck my car.
And then, well, and you could go do that at a bar and then get in your car and go kill someone on the way home. Exactly. I was watching a documentary thing last week or whatever on prohibition and everything. Mm-hmm. And marijuana was legal during prohibition.
Yeah.
And they couldn't, one of the reasons, well, because of, you know, the crash or whatever.
The stock market crash.
Yeah. So they couldn't control marijuana. So they couldn't tax it, right? So the government needed to rebuild the economy and everything. Yep. So they're finally like, well, we can legalize booze and just tax the crap out of it.
Yep.
And that totally like built the nation back.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's the crazy thing people don't realize, especially like income tax. People paying personal income tax didn't happen until World War II with the effort to where we needed to make more money. It was supposed to be until the war was over.
And then
and now it's like, you know, 70, 80 years later, we're still paying fucking income tax. Didn't we have a tea party against what's kind of going on?
Right.
Like I'm paying a shit ton of money, man. Where's mine? You know?
Yep.
I mean, that's a whole different political.
Oh God, that's
you know, I mean,
a whole bunch of shows.
A whole bunch
of shows you could do on that.
Many shows I'm not even smart enough to even really debate, because I couldn't debate the economy with you and how that shit fucking works. All I know is in my business, when the economy sucks, I make no money. When it's thriving, I make money, because we're not a necessity.
You're not a necessity, so that's what happens, and that's So when the economy sucks, small businesses like hairdressers and things like that. Yep. You know what I mean? My wife's clothing store.
Yeah.
You know, it is, the more the economy sucks, well, people are like, I can't go buy a new outfit. You know, I got to buy groceries, put gas in the car, and the freaking gas is through the roof. You know,
seriously. So I drive a Suburban.
And now I can't even drive anywhere. You know, so.
You know, that's the thing is, like, you know, if I wasn't in this business, the two businesses that always are recession proof, booze and sex. I would either own a liquor store or a strip club, man.
Yeah, well, you know, and one of those basically rules the world. I would say sex, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think so, because
I agree with you there.
Yeah, because you know? Why do? Okay, we'll talk about men in general. Okay, men in the world. Why do men want money?
To get the girls.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Why do you have the booze at bars and stuff?
Get girls loosened up.
To get the girls, you know, it rules the world. You know?
Well, I was talking with one of my artists, and you know, there's a really fancy place here in Kansas City, a restaurant called the Peppercorn Duck Club. I mean, it's fancy, you know, like expensive, like high dollar, like full fancy. I've been there once, and I got chicken penne and pasta, and it was $70. Chicken and pasta. Luckily, I wasn't paying for it. I was there for a wedding, but still, you know, he's like, "Oh man, this is where you got to go. You take your date there." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because she knows you're a man. She knows you got money, and she's going to put out." I'm like, "Fuck that, dude. We're going to fucking Domino's." You know what I mean? Like, if it's my first date, dude, I'm not doing that. Like, that shit's safe for the people I love and want to treat.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, yo, if you and I were on our first date, man, we're going to the bar and we're going to get a pizza afterwards. You know what I mean? Because if you're down for that, you're going to be a down person.
Then you know. My
Well,
mom always likes to tell this funny story. She was dating my dad and this other guy at the same time, you know, and they both showed up on the same night. And the other dude showed up with like flowers and all this stuff. My dad showed up with a 6-pack of beer and a bag of potato chips. My mom's like, he's the one.
Yeah. I hear you. You know. Let me ask you a couple quick questions, and I'll let you go because we're about 2.5 hours in. So I don't want to.
Oh
take
wow! Jeez, time flies.
I know. Do you have kids?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have one daughter's 29, and just today she was FaceTiming me, and I'm like, she almost never FaceTimes me, but I was on the crapper. Like, I'm not going to answer right now, you know?
Yeah.
And so then my daughter, who lives with us here, who's 13, she comes downstairs, Dad, Brittany's trying to call you, pick up the phone. I'm like, I'm in the bathroom, you know? Well, hurry up and come out. So I come out, and she showed me the pregnancy test.
Oh,
so
congratulations!
The second time, they already have a 2.5-year-old, and now she's pregnant again. So
fucking grandpa cool. Crucified, man. Grandpa.
Yep. Times 2. But she at least let me get to 50 before made me a grandpa.
Congratulations! No, I hear you, man. I have a 21-year-old that kind of being wild, and I'm only 47. I'm like, come on, man. I'm too young for this. I couldn't. Grandpa Simon's way too fucked. I'm not ready for that shit, man. I'm not ready.
You just got to get to 50, then you'll be cool.
60? I'm cool with 60.
50. 50.
55.
50 is okay. 50 is okay.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
I have a 21-year-old and a 12-year-old.
Okay.
And
it's 29 and 13.
Yep. And both of my daughters, their birthdays are a day apart. June.
No way, really?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. From Christmas to after February, it's expensive. It sucks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you take your kids to church? I mean, have you raised your kids Christian?
So, well, my older daughter, she and her mom and I didn't stay together.
Okay.
You know, I was a douchebag and bailed out and everything. I was always there and available, but I didn't really participate in raising her. You know, I would have her, but I wasn't a dad, a super involved dad, because I was partying drunk all the time. That was during all that time, you know. So with Maddie, she's mine and my wife's. So, you know, she's been under our roof her whole life. So been raising her. Yeah, she went to church with us until we moved out here. And like I said, since we've been out here, we've only gone to church a handful of times.
Is it because churches down there are a little bit more fucked up than other churches?
No, not at all. We've gotten pretty lazy, and COVID made it really easy to watch church on TV.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And and here's one of the other reasons, and it's goofy, but we like to sleep in a little bit Sunday morning.
I'm with you, dude.
Okay, so the church we went to before moving, they had kids services were at the same time as every adult service.
Mm-hmm.
Out here, the church that my mom really likes to go to, they only have the kids groups at the early service, which is at 9:30, which isn't early, but we like to sleep in. And she's 13. She really likes to sleep in. Yeah, and this kid gets straight A's, and she dances 4 nights a week. Okay.
Let her sleep in. So
she's tired.
Yeah. She's earned that sleep in Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. So, but there are some, we've been talking, and we want to just get her back into some routine and structure, because the church we were at, the one where I played on the worship team and all that stuff, that Maddie basically grew up in before we came out here. So until 10, 11 years old, it was good for her. And they didn't shove, fire and damnation down her throat and stuff, but it made her a good, grounded kid. And we're really seeing that now out here with some of the stuff that goes on with teenagers and, and things like that.
Do you think that any other religion could do the same thing? What about Buddhism? Mystic Hinduism, where it's just about the calming of the self, the meditation, where you basically try and align your mind with what God is, and that you therefore you get from the universe. I'm not explaining it correctly, but you know what I mean. Like,
I think I know what you're saying.
but
I think any religion would teach people, some good morals, some good ways to live your life. Most certainly are love other people, respect other people, take care of other people, take care of yourself. So certainly, the only difference the only big difference between Christianity and other religions is Jesus. So, and I don't know, there's one thing that seems kind of interesting about some other religions is like at one of my old schools, one time I was talking with one of my coworkers who is Indian and Punjabi, and she was saying that, well, our religion, we really look at Jesus as an angel, really great guy, and this and that. And I'm thinking, okay, he's one of two things. Either he can only be one of two things. Either he's the son of God, as he claimed, or he's a raving lunatic. It's one of the two. It can only be one.
It can't be, yeah. He's either what he says he is, or he's a complete false.
Or he's a raving lunatic who complained, who said he was the son of God and God. You know what I mean? So it's got to be one or the other. So you can't say Jesus was a great prophet, Jesus was a great, great this, that. It just, to me, I don't know. It's an interesting thing how.
Well, definitely. And for me, I'll just kind of say this, and then I'll let you get going, so that it's getting late. But I mean, the story of Jesus had been going around the Mediterranean 1,000 years before him. You know what I mean? There's the purpose of my show, I don't care if you convert. I'm not trying to make you think the way I think. I don't care. Yeah. You live your life the best guide. But there's an amazing documentary called Creating Christ, done by this PhD anthropologist. Sorry, couldn't say it. Where you'll basically show where all these amazing pagan gods through the Roman Catholic Church basically started creating Christianity. You know what I mean? It's amazing. And my thing is, I'm not trying to make people walk away and believe in nothing. You know what I mean? But the more information throughout where things come from, you get a better idea. You know what I mean? And that still might not even change your mind. But for me, it's like people like my mom who won't even entertain the ideas when I'm like, read about, like the Nicene Chapel, you know what I mean? Where Constantine came in, that's why there's the Gnostic Gospels, the one that weren't canon, that weren't put into the New Testament. You know what I mean? There's so many, even if it doesn't change your mind, it's worth reading and at least looking at, and it gives you some conversation and maybe some food for thought when you're sitting around going, it's just an interesting story. And I think they're all stories. I don't believe, Zeus was a god. I mean, he was a god, you know what I mean? But I don't believe he was real. I don't believe, Shiva, Krishna, and especially in America, how, Buddha sat under the tree for 100 years to attain enlightenment. Johnny Appleseed, he fell asleep for 100 years. You know what I mean? There's so many correlations between ancient stories and new stories that they're so similar. It's just, it's just food for thought.
Yeah.
What
was that called?
Creating Christ. It's a great documentary. And I was having this conversation with Roger, and I'm going to give you a little quick 2-minute backstory. I wanted to do this show, and this has been a 3-year journey. And so when Rox Records started reproducing Destruction Comes and and released upon the earth, I had messaged Bill. I'm like, hey man, I want to do a documentary on the Christian metal scene. I wanted to like make a movie, but I didn't have that kind of money. So I thought I'd just do a YouTube show. And so I'm like, hey man, do you know how to get a hold of Roger? And just kind of pass along this. So Bill replied, he's like, no, I haven't heard from Roger. I'm like, well, who's paying him? How's he getting his money from the royalties you guys are selling? He's like, well, this person owns it now, which is Adele Meisenheimer from a music group. And so I reached out to her, and she's like, well, I haven't heard from Roger in years. I'm like, then how's he getting paid? So basically, I had some friends in LA that do private investigating, and I'm like, hey man, can you find this guy for me? So they found him, gave him my number. Roger called me, and so it was literally 2 years of me and him talking back and forth, emailing, like, hey man, I just want to do an interview with you. I'm not after anything. Like there's no motives other than I just want to hear your story, And so, this is how the show started. But man, I lost my goddamn shit. But I'm glad. I'm just glad it's been able to grow, so I can talk to people that not only have had a big influence on my life, whether it's as a kid and being a Christian and whatnot, or as an adult and still appreciating the music you guys created. If my daughter and wife weren't sleeping, man, after this, I'd go throw on Pillars of Humanity on the record player and be like, let's do it. You know what I mean? I mean, I just wish that I don't know. It's just one of those things where, as Christians, I think if there was so much more just leniency other than this hard line stuff, I think that you would find that people would be more accepting to a story. And I loved our conversation. I've loved everybody I've talked to so far, from you to Jim. Roger's a little crazy.
I watched both of Rogers.
Yeah,
I learned some things in there that I didn't know about him. That was an interesting one.
Well, and that's the thing, I have so many people that message me. They're like, you're mad at people, you're not mad at God. I'm like, no, I'm not mad at God because I don't believe God exists. I'm mad at people perpetuating lies and bigotry and or anything else I find ethically wrong in his name, Mm-hmm. Jim kind of got into a little bit. I'm not going to get into it with you, but Black Lives Matter, gay rights, LBQ, that kind of stuff. That's a whole different situation. But it's like, I just wish everybody would be able to, at least, if you're going to come and have a conversation, have some facts. You know what I mean? Know why you're fighting. Know what you're coming after. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
But I love your take, man. You're like, I just do my own thing.
That's why I said I was, I'm not the debating type,
Yeah.
And if you had told me when we messaged back and forth that, well, no, I really want to get in and debate this, then I would say, well, then it's not the show for the two of us, because
totally.
I'm not the type to really do that, and I don't study everything and blah blah blah. So
and believe me, man,
but we can have to talk about all the life stuff for sure.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think real life is more important and more interesting than anything written 3,000 years ago. You know what I mean? Because it's not relevant. Those stories and those parables, for me, are not relevant in a scientific society where we know so much more than we did, before we even knew that the sun was, the center of the universe, where everyone thought we were the center of the universe, and it came around us,
Yeah.
So no, it was a great conversation, man. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate that, you're like, man, I was doing this, I was doing that, without saying it was the devil that tempted me and I succumbed to his evilness and then I repented to God. You're like, look, man, I like getting laid and getting fucked up at a point in time. It's not who I am now, but it's a path I was on for a while.
That was my my curiosity, something I never experienced, and those things are still down in here, believe me, because a lot of those things were fun, but it's like, I'm not going to be a good person if I revert back to that stuff. So,
I agree.
It
used to be.
Look, we'll cut it. Whether you believe it's sin or not, so we'll call it sin. sin is fun. It's fun stuff.
You
You know?
know, I was
So
that guy for years, man. Like out at the bar, man. Too many drinks, man. You looked at me wrong. I was a fighting son of a bitch all the time. You know what I mean? Like,
uh
I'd fight like that. You know, I mean,
so you enjoyed it.
yeah, and I liked it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I know guys that love to fight,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm like, why would you like to fight? You know, I mean, unless it's
Our primal instinct.
organized fighting or whatever, but some guys just like to.
I was that guy. I like to get into a good bar fight all the time.
Let me ask you, because are you tall? You're pretty tall.
6'7".
6'7"?
Yeah.
Holy crap! So, do you get a lot of people that want to fight you just because you're the big guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Always.
Interesting. I never really knew that or whatever. And then we had a friend that we met out here, and he used to play pro football, and he's not nearly as tall as you. He's probably 6'4" or something, you know. But we go down to Broadway on Nashville, and these smaller dudes are just totally shoulder checking him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are these guys just wanting to get pounded? And he said, it's always the little guys
Always
that want to fight the big guys.
Yep.
I'm like, what? Are you just asking for a death wish? But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or they just.
I'll tell you a funny story though.
On
On
the
little
challenge.
guys. I was at the Roxy. I was probably like 16, and back then, man, I never got carded. So I was in there. I don't even remember what show I was at. Maybe just a local show. I was just down in Hollywood for the night with a buddy of mine, and I was drinking and having a good time. And you know, being un-PC at that time, you know, this little Mexican dude bumped into me, and I pushed him back. I was like, "Watch out, you little spick!" You know what I mean? Just being an asshole. Like, oh, what's up, dude? I'm like, "You want to go?" This motherfucker kicked the shit out of me. I mean, he was a little fucking Oscar De La Hoya. I took a swing, pop. Dude, that guy must have hit me 7-8 times before I could even figure out what's going on. After about 3 of those, I was like, "Yo, man, let me buy you a drink." I apologize.
You got it.
Yeah, I'm like, "Come on, man, let's go to the bar." And then actually, it was funny. We ended up being friends after that. So, you know, I was like, "Yeah," but yeah, even I was getting some stuff on the way home, and some dudes are like, "Are you a Chief? Kansas City Chiefs?" Because I live in Kansas City, the football team. Yeah, I'm like, "Nah."
Yeah.
He's like, "You play football?" I'm like, "Dude, I've never played football. I don't even watch football. I hate football." You know, he's like, "Baseball? Nope. Basketball? Nope." He's like, "What did you do?" I go, "Dude, I grew up in LA. I surfed. I skateboarded. I listened to punk rock, and I used to do security for a living. That's what I was into. I was never a jock." Throughout my whole high school, everybody was like, the coach was like, come. I'm like, "No. I don't care. That's not what I'm into, you know?"
Yeah.
And people don't get it. They're like, "But you're so big." I'm like, "Yeah, man. But also 30 years ago, I was way skinnier and was more limber, you know?" So I've never been an athlete like that. But
that's always the assumption, you know. See someone super tall and you assume that they got to play ball of some sort.
Yeah. My thing was, you know, when I first got my first bass at 13, and I didn't have a music teacher, I'm just trying to figure it out. Was I wanted to play your guys' stuff. I wanted to play music like you, you know. That's funny. I was talking to a vocalist that I know from a good band here in Kansas City, and we were talking about doing something. And I have an idea for a project called Against All Masters. And there's an atheist term that is no gods, no masters, no slaves. It's kind of this, you know, it's self-explanatory.
Yeah. Okay.
And masters, I don't even believe in just a, you know, heavenly sense. You know, money can be your master. Sex can be your master. You know, kind of a straight edge thing, you know, no booze, no sex, you know, just kind of an esoteric, just like you are in control of whatever, you know. And I was talking to the singer, and he's like, "Well, what kind of music do you want to sound like?" And I Facebooked him your guys' Pillars album. I'm like, "That's what I want to sound like." You know, not lyrically, but I'm like,
music.
This is what I want to play. I've never got to do a band like that, and that's if I do a next project, that's what I want to do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do it, man.
I'm going to. Well, yeah, like I said, you know, I got to figure out a practice space, and it's the right, you know how that goes. Especially when you get older, and you're like, should I just go inside and watch a movie, or do I really want to do this? You know?
Yep.
Do I want to stay for that last band at 11 o'clock, or do I want to just head home?
Yeah. No
kidding. You know it. You know. Well, man, I'm going to say thank you so much, man. I appreciate our talk. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
I will say if you do talk to Mark, put in a good word. I'd love to talk to Mark too.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't talked to Mark in probably a couple years.
Are you guys not that close, or just everybody busy?
Well, everyone kind of moved away, and I think
Mark always seemed. I met Mark twice at Sanctuary. Like you said, on the melancholy side, he's a grumpy Gus. You know what I mean? He was just a very serious man. Very.
Yeah, he's pretty. He will when he's comfortable and stuff. He'll cut up and have a good time and everything. But yeah, he's pretty serious guy typically.
I just can't believe he works for a NASCAR.
I don't know that. I mean, it's after the Cruise fight broke up, really the only time I spent any time with him was in 2009 when we were playing, and that was a short period of time. So I can't even really say that I know the guy, because I know Mark from way back when, and then a little bit in 2009. So, yeah, we just all kind of went our separate ways. I mean, I stay in touch with Jim.
Yeah,
that was because Jim and I still lived in Fresno together before I came out here. So
what about Jeff, man? How's Jeff doing?
Jeff is I don't even know what state Jeff lives in.
He lives in Denver, I think, in Colorado.
Denver, is that it? Yeah. Jeff and I trade happy birthday texts, and that's pretty much it.
Right on. I mean, not all your friends are going to be your friends for the rest of your life,
And it's funny because with those guys, like if we got together tonight in this room, we would go right back. I have those friends. You can be away from them for 20 years. Yep. You get back together, and then it's instantly comfortable, like you never left. Yeah, that's the way they are.
That's awesome.
We'd crack the same jokes. We'd say the same stupid stuff. You know what I mean? But we just haven't stayed in touch.
No. Well, whether the friendship endures or not, definitely, man. You guys' legacy with not even the Crucified, Applehead, you're self-titled, everything that the other guys have done. You know what I mean? Like, you guys have put a much bigger stamp on not only the Christian music industry, but just music in general.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Once this gets edited and whatnot, I'll shoot you over a link. And man, if you ever want to do it again, have questions. And that's the thing. I keep telling people, I'm like, I'm coming up with the questions, man. If you're like, hey, man, let's do round 2. I got questions for you. Let me have it, man. I'm ready for it. You know what I mean? You can ask me anything you want. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool, man. So if you ever want to do a second one and let me know.
All right. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was fun. I love doing this type of stuff.
Thank you for doing it, man. I appreciate it. All right. Go say hello to your wife for me and have a good day.
All right, you too.
Take care.